Hello everyone and welcome back to Insights at DDLynn Designs, a unique twist in the ancient art of wire. I'm so excited today to share this beginner spiral earring tutorial. It takes one wire and two beads. So before we get started, please everyone, it's interesting the social media enterprise that we live in today, and it takes just ridiculous things like constant likes and comments. And I know that for a lot of us, it's like, oh gosh, here we go again. But in fact, that's the case. So I would really appreciate if you would just, it takes less than a second to hit the like button, 5 seconds to comment and say something that you like about it. Also, I would love to get your feedback on what you'd like to see or learn how to make. So this is a beginner tutorial, and today we're going to be using 7 to 8 inches of 18 gauge wire. And what I've done and on this is I've hammered the end. And I'm wondering, you guys, if that light is too much. Is that too much? I can't tell. It's an interesting time of day to do this, so the light might be not correct. But I've hammered the end. If you're a beginner and you don't have a chasing hammer or a jeweler's hammer and a hammering block, I'm going to show you how to close off the end doing a simple spiral. So the reason why you want 7.5 or 7 to 8 inches of wire is going to depend on how big you're going to make your spiral. So on this one, this is my prototype. I used a 20 gauge square, and I was actually going to make the whole ear hook out of it, but you can't get a square wire tip through your ear. So I changed it up a little bit. So anyways, let's get started. So I've already cut my 2 pieces and I've hammered my end. So all I'm going to do, and you want to make sure, especially for beginners, that your bead hole size will fit your wire. So 18 gauge wire is 1 millimeter. This hole is just a little bit bigger than 1 millimeter. So I've gotten myself 2 chopsticks. You can use anything. You can use a pencil, a pen, a Sharpie. I wanted a little bit more of an oval shape, so I taped my 2 chopsticks together. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your beads on your 2 wires. Okay, so you should have this. And you can see the hammered end. And if you do hammer it, we're going to talk about how you're going to direct this when we're going to wrap it around my chopsticks. So if you're not going to hammer, I'm going to show you quickly what you're going to do with the end on a piece of scrap wire. So all you're going to do, and if you're a beginner and you're new to spiral making, I do a lot of tutorials on showing people how to do spirals. That's a half round wire. Let me get just a piece of scrap here so I can show you how. Trying to find a piece of scrap. Well, this will work. It's already twisted, but that's okay. So all you're going to do is on your end is you're going to make a spiral. You can actually just do a loop too if you wanted. And you're just going to spiral that end. And that is going to catch your bead. Okay? So if you don't have a hammer, you can spiral the end. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to bend your wire. So you want to make sure that if you've hammered the base of your wire, you want to bend your wire so that the hammered portion is facing up towards you. So that's the flat end. You don't want it twisted on its side. So I'm going to get my pliers and I'm going to bend my wire. It's going to put it right there. And I'm just going to bend my wire in a 90 or an L shape. So here's what you should have. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. I'm going to make sure that the flat part of the hammered tip is facing up. It's not on its side. And I'm going to bend that wire. And these, by the way, are gemstones. They just, I don't know, I like gemstones. They hold up a lot longer. So I'm just bending that wire. So now this is what you should have. 2 wires bent. Let me get my fingers out of the way. This one I'm going to bend a little bit more. It's on too much of a curve. So I just want it more like an L shape. There we go. So that corrected that. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your chopsticks or whatever you have, and you're going to wrap this on your sticks. So it's kind of fiddly to hold. Oh, sorry, you guys. I was holding it down the wrong way. Duh! My own design, and I was holding it the wrong way. So what I do is I kind of hold it down here. See where my thumb is going on that bend? Right here. And if it's hard, you can use pliers. I'm just used to doing it. And then I'm going to wrap my wire around. And this one's about almost 8 inches long. I'm going to come around 4 times. So I'm coming around those sticks 4 times. And so here's where I'm going to stop. Do you see how that's kind of arcing up? I'm going to push that down. Just going to push it down a little bit. So I've got plenty of wire, so I'm going to come around another time, and I'm going to end up on the top. So here's what you should have. My chopsticks are really long. They're poking me in my neck. So now what you're going to do is you've got this excess wire here, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to bend this wire in the middle, just like you did this one in the middle, straight up. So you're going to create another 90 or another L shape. So I'm just simply going to get in the middle. This is kind of my guide, but you can eye it. And I'm just going to, I need to get my hands in here in a better working position, you guys. So I'm going to keep turning this around. And I'm going to use my finger because I want you to see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to bend that up in the middle. Long chopsticks get in the way. Super easy peasy. So here's what you should have. So now I'm going to just whittle this up. It's a little tight, but it comes off pretty easy. And I'm going to set it down. So here's what we're starting with. So I'm going to do the same thing, but this time, if you remember, I put my bead down with the bend facing to the left, okay? So the bend in this wire is facing to the left, which means this wire needs to face to the right. You see that? So this one went to the left. So that they're not exactly the same. You want them to go in the opposite direction. And I've got this going the wrong way again. I don't know what my problem is today. So this one's going to the left, and these are fiddly to hold. And that one's going to the right. So it's the same thing. I'm just going to hold this down. Did I get that in the right direction? I got to make sure I got that in the right direction. I do. And I'm going to wrap my wire. Something tells me I'm not doing this right. I'm talking to myself out loud. Oops, you guys. I think I have that. Sometimes the brain plays tricks with you. Give me a second here. I got to look at this. So I'm going to be maybe out of camera. So that one I had the bend going. And this one, the bend is going to go in the opposite direction. So that's right. Okay, so this bend, if I look at it this way, is actually going to the right. Let me get my fingers out of the way. Okay. This bend right here, if I look at it to where the wire's starting its loop, is going to the right. So I had it confused in my head. Little brain farts, it happens. And this bend... See, I don't want it to go to the right. I want that bend to go to the left. So the opposite direction. So let me see if I can hold these again so that you can get a visual of what I'm doing. It's really hard to hold this wire and the here, let me do it this way. Got a lot of fiddly stuffs going on here. So do you see that? How this bend is going to the right and that one's going to the left. You want them in the opposite direction so that they face each other So, okay, we're going to do the same thing. So all I'm going to do is hold down my wire. And I'm going to try to keep it centered. That bead gets a little bit in the way. It's a little fiddly. And I'm just going to bend my wire around 4 times. Did I do it 4 times on that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Then I'm going to come up. And right in the middle, I'm going to bend it up. And then I'm just going to snug it off. So now, do you see how we've got our 2 matching earrings? So the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of straighten this out a little bit, make sure everything's centered. See how I'm centering that up so that these are in line with each other? And I'm going to check this one out and do the same thing. Just kind of squeezing them in a little bit. And lining this up with that one. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stretch it out. And we're just going to hold it and pull from the back of the wires. And you can stretch it out as far as you like, just based on your personal taste. So there's one, and I might stretch it out a little bit more. And let's do the other one. So I'm pulling from the back with my fingernails, and I'm just stretching it out, kind of like an accordion or a spring. And again, the reason why I use the chopsticks is I wanted an oval shape. I didn't want the typical spiral. That's very common, and I like more of an oval shape. So I'm going to start comparing these, and that looks pretty good. And do you see now how the flat side of my hammered tip on both of these is facing up? And one is swirling that way, and one is swirling the other way. They're swirling in the opposite directions. So I think I'm going to stretch them out a little bit more, and it's just really gentle tweaking. And we'll do the same thing on this one. So let's take a look. So because this is 18 gauge wire, it typically won't fit through an ear unless somebody has, you know, relatively larger hole size where they put their pierced earring through or their fishhook through. I tried it on another one, and I have pretty big ear holes, or whatever you want to call them, earring holes, and that sounded so weird. And it was a little tight for me, so that's why I made these loops. Now you could use 20 gauge, but it's going to be really flimsy. So now what we're going to do is I'm just going to tweak them a little bit more. And again, you can have them as close together or as far apart as you want. You can do more than this many spirals. You would just need to compensate and cut more wire. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up, just a couple of centimeters, not centimeters, millimeters. And I'm just going to take my round nose. Now for beginners, and I got these out, sorry you guys for the switch there, as I wanted you to see. I'm going to take my round nose and I'm going to use the smallest side. So this is number 1, the smallest tip on my 6-step bell making pliers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to come up a couple millimeters, and I'm going to roll this wire back. Then I'm going to adjust my wrist and pull it up, and I'm just going to push it over like that. Then I'm going to take these out again and put them in the other way so I can continue to wrap that wire. And this is really a beginner technique, so you don't have to try to figure out how to use these pliers a lot. Then this is the back. Do you see that? So I'm just going to push that wire over. Now, if you are a beginner, I always recommend doing a little bit of one side and a little bit of the other. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just coming up a couple centimeters. millimeters. Just know if I say centimeters today, I mean millimeters. I'm just going to push that wire over. I'm going to readjust my wrist and then bring it back around, just going in the opposite direction based on this earring. Then I'm going to pull my pliers out, put them back in, and come back around and swing it down. Then I'm just going to squeeze them together. Now, my wire's too long, so I'm going to cut some excess off, but not all of it, just a little bit right now, because I want to bring that wire around a little bit more. And it's too long. It's meaning that it's bumping into the spiral. So I'm just going to cut those off. Super easy. I'm just going to use my finger or my hand. If it's not possible for you, let me show you a little tip. Simply just get your pliers and use the leverage of the plier and the 6-step and just push it down. Now, I don't want it to come out the front, so I can turn it around and see that I've made some tweaks here. So I'm just kind of pulling it up. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that wire now in the back. And I'm just going to push it in a little bit. I'm going to get my pliers back in there. Because I really want to round that little tail left into the plier. There we go. Much better. So we've got our one earring. And the same thing over here. I'm just going to put my pliers back in and do the same thing. I can see that that's still a wee bit long, but I still want to push it down some. And then I'm just rolling it in to that 6-step plier so that it's even. So now we have our 2 earrings. Aren't they the cutest? We're almost done. We're going to make a quick fish hook or an earring hook. Right now I'm just doing some tweaks and straightening this out. And they're just so cute. They're really cute on, especially with the bead on the end and the little hammered tip. So now we're going to make some fish hooks. You're going to get 20 gauge round, and you're only going to need about 1.5 inches, probably not even that much. All I'm going to do is straighten this wire out. So I'm going to do about 1.5 inches. Cut that. And let me know, you guys, what you want to see. Do you want to see decorative wire hooks? I make a lot of decorative, not wire hooks. Well, they are hooks. Earring hooks. So there goes that arm. So now because this loop is going in this direction, it's not sideways, it's going up and around, I'm going to show you a little trick. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll my wire in. This is just a basic ear hook. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. Now I would hammer, when you're making ear hooks, I would absolutely hammer them. And so you need to decide on how big you want, let me show you, how big you want your hook. So meaning the distance in this arc. So this is pretty small. But some people have really tiny, tiny earlobes, you know. So I'm going to use the number 5. And all you're going to do, and I want to show you how to do this. It's super easy if you've never made an ear hook. You're going to put the top of your loop in between the 6-step plier. It's sitting on top. Okay? And all you're going to do is swing that wire around. That's all you're doing. Then you take it off. You got one hook right here. And do the same thing with the other one. So we're going to put it on the top, and I want it to wrap around my number 5. So I'm just going to swing it around, just pushing that all the way around. And we have 2 identical, same length shepherd's hooks or fish hooks for earrings. Now, if you don't want your length that long, you can cut it off, but I want to show you another little cute trick and we're done. So I noticed that this was just a little bit longer, so I'm going to even that up. And then all I'm going to do is take some flat nose pliers, and I'm going to grab both these tips right here on the end, push them together, and I'm just going to hold them and flare them out so that they don't slide out the ear so much. Then typically what I do is I go into my workshop in the garage and I hammer the arc really hard, and I hammer the tail a little bit just to make sure that that ear hook doesn't bend, because 20 gauge wire is very soft. Now let me show you a really cool trick. See how this is going? This is how the earring is going to hang on the ear. Okay, this is our loop, and we can't connect it here, right? We'd have to use a jump ring. Well, I don't want to use a jump ring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this loop on its side. So I'm going to take my flat nose and another pair of flat nose. So we got this and this. And I'm going to hold it firmly, and all I'm going to do is give it a twist. So here's what you have. It's a really cool way to compensate if you don't want to add jump rings, depending on the direction of the loop that you're going to hook your earring fish hook to. So you see how we're going to be able to slip that in there. So the same thing on this one, but I need to go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to hold it here. And I'm just going to twist it in the opposite direction. So again, they're not going in the same direction on each ear. So here's what you should have. Isn't that a cool little tip? Tips, tricks, and techniques accelerate your journey big time in this ancient art of wire. So now all I'm going to do is open this up. And I'm going to slide my earring through and close it off. So there's one. And the same thing on this one. And we be done. So please, please, everybody, please give me your feedback, comments. Let me know what you'd like to see me teach you. And I think I got that going the wrong direction. I do. There we go. And now we have our darling oval spiral earrings. Aren't they the cutest? They're just, oops, I put this one on backwards. Let's flip it around. I just saw that. It was on backwards. That looks much better. Let's see. Are they both going the right way now? Now, if that hook gets in your way, you can always cut it shorter. But now we have these darling little oval-shaped spiral gemstone earrings. And these are apatite gemstones. and they're just so cute. So thank you so much for being a part of this magical, mystical, wonderful, ancient art of wire. And if you don't know, it dates back 5,000 years before the Phoenicians. And I really appreciate everything that you guys do for me. So you know what? As Thumper said in Bambi, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Have a fabulous, magical, wonderful wire wrap day. Bye for now.